Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How all you vipers doing out there this evening? Hopefully you're all smoking big fat doinks, as we learned on our 420 family reunion show what a viper was. So all you vipers out there, I hope you're doing well and smoking big fat doinks. Miss Weedman?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm here. I'm well.
You were just on the phone for 2 hours trying to get some flights to see the kids.
Jeez Louise. I don't even know how many credits we have. I think we've canceled like 5 different trips. So we've got credits all over the place for airlines. And yeah.
2 hours to not get even a person on the phone.
They kept telling me that they care about me as a customer. I didn't feel like they did.
How many replays of the songs did you hear when you were listening?
I officially was looped on my third round of the same music. So I was on the phone for a while. Oh my gosh. But the only way to book the flight is by calling. You can't just use the voucher, the credit online and book online. It's ridiculous.
Crazy. I saw it. I heard the music going over and over while we were cooking dinner. Lots of fun. So hope everybody had a good 420. I know we did. It was a great 420 episode. Lots of fun, lots of family on, music. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope your 420 was great. I hope you learned a little history in 420, and I hope you celebrated with lots of doinks and bong rips and edibles, and everybody had loads of fun. I saw the lines at the dispensaries. They were pretty long. Woo-woo! That's a day I will not go shopping for my weed on 420, that's for sure. There was a good couple hour waits at some of these dispensaries I stopped at to say hello to. It was crazy.
But you were saying that they had specials, so that's why a lot of people were there.
Yes, of course.
To shop on 420.
I mean...
But here in Chicago, it was snowing on 420.
9 a.m. The lines were long.
Cold and gross, and you had to stand outside and wait.
Yes. So all you people out there that wait in lines on 420 to get your cannabis, you are studly people in my book, and go after that cannabis and get those strains on sale, baby, I swear. But well, I hope 420 was great for everybody, and I know it was great for Mrs. Weedman and I. We had a special show, and we love you all, and hopefully you enjoyed it. So, but let's get started here. We're going to smoke a little homegrown. Let's do a little toast. I got a little High Life. Mrs. Weedman got a little rosé. Go ahead and salute.
That's a good one.
You like that rosé. You've been drinking it since Friday.
That same bottle.
Same bottle. We're not fast drinkers in this house. Fast smokers, but not fast drinkers.
So I'm going to smoke our homegrown, which Mr. Weedman smoked last night and said he thinks is stronger now that it's been cured for multiple weeks.
Yeah, it's been curing now since January, but I mean, it's pretty strong.
We'll see if I'm capable of giving you any sort of conversation that makes sense. We'll see.
I don't know. I took 4 hits last night, and I was pretty baked. But as I feel, this has gotten a little bit stronger, but I mean, who knows? What do I know? All I know is just depends on how hard you hit it and how many times you smoke it, and that's it. So Mrs. Weeman's going to talk while I rip one real quick.
And I'm sticking with 1 hit. I'm good with 1 hit for the show. Although last week I had a few.
That was different.
That was 420.
That was the 420 show.
We had fun. All right. Oh, jeez. What did I just do now? Bear with me, people. There we go.
Well,
all right.
Mrs. Weedman, anything else going on?
No.
Well, it was a good day today. It's going to be warm in Chicago this week, so hopefully we'll get some spring because it's been fake spring. But there's been some crazy stuff going on. A businessman who was 51 who was legally smoking cannabis in Vegas before flying to Dubai is arrested after doctors found traces of it in his system when he had to go to the hospital. Now he faces 3 years behind bars. Peter Clark, 51, smoked cannabis days before flying from Vegas to Dubai. Clark flew to Dubai on February 24th for a business trip to look for recording studios. He's a retired game designer and lives in Las Vegas, where cannabis is legal. Once in Dubai, Clark developed a pancreatitis and had to go to the hospital. That is where the doctors ran a blood test and found traces of cannabis. They reported him to the police. He was arrested and is now on a no-fly list. Prosecutors are weighing whether or not to bring charges against him. A businessman who legally smoked cannabis. Dubai is very, very strict on drugs, cannabis especially. I mean, there's no tolerance there at all. And Peter Clark was arrested after traces of cannabis showed up in his system when he was admitted to the hospital for emergency treatment. He's a retired game designer, worked on popular Xbox and PlayStation games. He said he wants to branch out into something new, so he flew to Dubai to look for a recording studio. He had last smoked cannabis days before flying from his home in Vegas for a business trip in the United States to Dubai. He's 51 and had only been in Dubai for 1 day when he fell with pancreatitis and was rushed to the hospital. Nurses took a urine sample which showed traces of cannabis. As required by Dubai law, they informed the police of the results. Clark, a retired computer game designer from Vegas, Nevada, was arrested and thrown in jail for 3 days. Since being released, he has been forced to stay in his hotel while awaiting decisions from prosecutors if they will charge him. Clark said he was fully aware of Dubai's zero-tolerance policy on drugs and had not bought or taken any after arriving on February 24th to look to recording studios. He told, I was absolutely stunned to learn that I was being charged due to the residual cannabis in my system. I smoked it legally back in America long before I even got on the plane. I knew about Dubai's strict drug laws, but never for one moment did I think something I illegally did in my own country would lead to my arrest. He fell ill the day after arriving in Dubai for a business trip to assess setting up on recording studio in the country. He received emergency treatment in the hospital a day before being discharged. Was asked to provide a urine sample. After the test came back positive for a banned substance, police arrived at his bedside, handcuffed him, and transported him to the Al Barash police station. While being held in jail, a vein where the IV line had been placed as part of his treatment became infected, and antibiotics had to be prescribed. Were not handed over by prison staff. After being freed, he was repeatedly summoned to a police station and told he could have his passport returned, but instead he was questioned over the drugs in his system. With his pleas of innocence ignored, the retired computer gamer designer is on a no-fly list and cannot leave the country until prosecutors decide if he should face court. Peter said, "This was just turned into a complete nightmare. I never thought by going to hospital I would end up being thrown in jail. I have not done anything wrong." Peter, who was also involved in the design of the popular games for PlayStation and Xbox, has obtained legal representation. The U.S. Embassy in Dubai have also been informed of his arrest. The pressure group detained in Dubai, who assist many visitors who fall foul of Dubai's strict laws, have also taken up his case. Founder Radha Sterling said the UAE's arbitrary enforcement of laws and lack of predictable legal outcomes means that Peter faces years in prison for legally smoking cannabis. Even if found innocent, he can be dragged through a slowly and costly legal process. Corrupt police informants have been used by the prosecution to upgrade possession charges to that of drug dealing. Sterling added that it was vital for the U.S. Embassy in Dubai to get involved. The U.S. State Department needs to ensure that its citizens who visit the UAE are safe from legal abuse. Detained in Dubai were previously involved in trying to help ensure the release of former British soldiers who found themselves charged with drug offenses. Also, Andy Neal, who spent years in Dubai falsely charged before they finally dropped and he could return to the UK. So, when you go to Dubai, they're fine with alcohol, I believe, but I don't think you can. I mean, not at all. They are like strict to the point where you'll do some time. So be careful when you go over there. But Peter Clark, man, hopefully you get back here to the United States, back to Nevada, where you can smoke cannabis legally. You know, I mean, you just gotta, when you go to different countries, you gotta find out what the laws are. And
I mean, that's crazy though.
It's
how long does THC stay in your blood? Like 30 days?
It depends. Yeah. Most
so,
of the time, 30 days.
Oh, I mean, who would ever think?
Urine is 30 days. I don't know blood, but urine is definitely 30 days. So, I mean, they found it in urine first, and then they went from urine
even if he smoked within the 24 hours, but he was in Vegas.
Right.
And then got on a flight and went over there.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, he didn't break the law.
No.
It's
in the United States, he didn't break the law.
He did not smoke anything or carry any drugs into the country.
Right.
The fact that it's in his blood is none of their business.
So hopefully the states, our embassy gets involved and helps him get home. So just a little shout out to Peter Clark. Good luck. We're thinking about you. Choosing the right strain for your vibe.
Yeah. We talked about this. We were talking last week when we talked about, like, do you mix strains and could you make like a strain cocktail? Well, what if you could actually determine like the strain that's right for you? And I think Mr. G last week was saying that he has honed in on strains that he does best with, right?
Right.
Yep. And then we like the Kushes, or I know that I really like the Kush strains. That's the only strain that I've really ever identified really works for me. Nothing else has consistently like stood out as being, whoa, that one works.
There was one, though, that works. The Weed Man 420 experimental stage.
Yeah, but we can't share that with anybody. So anyway, you go to your bud tender, right? And you say, I want to feel like this or I want to feel like that. And then they suggest a strain. They might give you a couple different strain options. But what if you want to like take a hike? You want to deep clean your apartment? They might recommend a strain that gives you an uplifting cerebral high. But if you're going to binge watch your favorite show, and that's the only thing on your agenda, they might want to point you into something that yields a more chill body high. As is often the case with cannabis, though, this concept is based partly on science, but partly on marketing, too. In other words, before we recommend some strains based on what you have planned for the day, we need to get some caveats out of the way. First of all, what exactly is a strain? Well, just like all plants, strains are essentially cultivars, like Galas, Fujis, and Granny Smiths are apple cultivars, explains Lewis Nelson, the chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine and the chief of the Division of Medical Toxicology at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. They are the result of breeding two different variants of cannabis. So what does it mean for a strain to be sativa or indica dominant, or a 50-50 hybrid of sativa and indica? Well, sativa and indica refer to different species in the cannabis genus, Nelson says. He explains that they look similar but contain different percentages of THC, the compound that gets you lit, and CBD, the compound that supposedly chills you out. Indicas and sativas have been bred to create different strains, so no longer are you buying sativa or indica. You're buying some combination of the two in varying proportions, he says. He notes that historically, sativa has been a high THC species, whereas indica has always been a high CBD species. THC tends to be more activating, he adds, which is often why you notice sativa-dominant strains marketed as energizing, while CBD is considered mellowing and reflective, hence why you might see indica-dominant strains described as relaxing. Yet there's some debate over whether a strain marketed as, say, 40% sativa and 60% indica reflects actual genetic differences. Nelson agrees. It's an impure definition, he said. Instead, we should probably be classifying it by what percentage and what quantity of THC and CBD are present. Even then, it gets a little murky, because whether the ratio of THC to CBD influences weed's physiological effects hasn't been formally studied, Nelson points out. And he adds that if you ask people to compare two strains that contain around the same quantity and composition of THC and CBD, chances are they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them. Similar to how most people can't distinguish between two good wines. But still, it's a place to start, he says. He believes the quantity of THC and strains contains is probably the best indicator of how it'll make you feel. On the other hand, he acknowledges that having a plethora of strains to choose from makes for a very fun shopping experience. So basically, treat matching your strain to your vibe as a playful art rather than a strict science. Here are some strains to imbibe based upon your goals, according to Graham Farrar, president and board member of cannabis and hemp company Glass House Group. So he says, Mr. Farrar says, if you're looking to sink into the sofa, strains that are either indica or indica dominant would be where you'd want to look. Farrar says, think Gorilla Glue strains like Original Glue or Sister Glue, as well as
What about Crazy Glue?
Oh, that sounds dangerous. Is there really a strain called Crazy Glue?
No, I was just thinking the old commercial, the Crazy Glue commercials.
You get your fingers stuck together and then you want to cry. As well as cookie strains like Girl Scout cookies or cookies and cream. He also suggests strains high in CBD. If you're looking to nap, he recommends strains high in compounds known as cannabinoid, CBN, which has personally helped him sleep.
That's the new high cannabinoid right now, CBN.
If you want to get shit done, so say you want to cross laundry, paying your bills, and other adulting tasks off of your to-do list, Farrar suggests sativa-dominant strains like Sour Diesel, which tend to contain more THC and feel more energetic and uplifting. Sour Diesel is one of the strains that makes you want to get stuff done, he says. He also suggests strains high in compound tetrahydrocannabivarin. Cannabivarin?
THCV.
Yeah, THCV, which he says some have described as the Adderall of weed for its invigorating effects, although there doesn't seem to be enough evidence for its purported effects at this point. So if you want to get out of a creative rut, the aptly named Flow White is a sativa dominant hybrid, and it could help you hit that elusive creative flow state. Farrar explains that it's high enough THC level to bump you out of your habitual way of thinking, but not so hard that you're not putting the pieces together. Oh, I want some. I want to try that. That said, cannabis may or may not enhance your creativity, depending on various factors, as I've previously reported, but it's worth a try.
You get pretty creative.
On certain strains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what... You get some shit done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember the strains, but you do. I've seen you get pretty creative and pretty, like, get some shit done on certain stuff. You also whip my ass in Uno too much when you're on that good high stuff.
If you're looking to reduce your anxiety, if you need help finding your chill, Farrar suggests a high CBD tincture, like Glasshouse Wellness, made from the company's jellyfish strain, which he says contains just enough THC to help the CBD do its work. A tincture allows you to have more control over the dose you take. And I'm stumbling on my words here because the key here is
stoned.
Yeah. No, but the key is that he's saying for this to be effective, the CBD to be effective, you need just enough THC. So with that said, a lot of people are buying CBD products in tobacco stores, convenience stores, wherever, your health food store, some of your grocery stores. That is CBD with essentially zero THC. I tend to think that there's some placebo effect involved in it. I can't say that it's bad for you. It's CBD. I think anything. I use cosmetics that have like hemp stem cells, so I'm not opposed to it. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that what really makes CBD work is having a very small percentage of THC in there, but having some viable amount of THC, because that activates the cannabinoids, right? In the CBD.
Gives it a little kickstart.
Ba-boom, pa-pow, pa-pow. Hey, our new little bird was pretty funny. He was chasing around the other bird, and he little bird, we call him little bird, but he thinks he's big, and he thinks he runs the show. These are parakeets, I'll have you know. One is 1 and one is 3. So the 1-year-old thinks he runs the show, and he's chasing the 3-year-old around Turk like he owns it, right? And then he gets all big and tries to make himself bigger than the older bird. Gets up on his toes and bows out his chest, and then he goes, "Wha-pow!" He kicked him. He did kick.
Front kick. Give him a Bruce Lee.
Oh my gosh, it was funny. He did it 3 or 4 times.
Oh yeah, just getting that front.
They
kick.
were super wound up playing, and he was like, "Wha-pow!" We'll have to get a video of that sometime. Back to the story though. Really, when we talk about using CBD effectively, we are talking about the CBD that you're going to get at your dispensary, because it's going to have a small amount of THC in there. It's not going to make you head high. It just is going to make the CBD work. So anyway, what Nelson is saying is the same. He says that CBD does seem to be more calming. It's important to note that researchers are still ironing out the details of weed's effects on anxiety, though. Too much THC could also send you spiraling into paranoia. So again, we're talking about strains that are good for anxiety. Like Nelson, Farrar points out that much of this is subjective. There's some level of experimentation, he says. You can get pointed in the right direction, but it's going to come down to a strain and a person and how they interact together. And if it's giving you what you want, well, then that's the one that's good for you, right? There's no one size fits all. Landing on your go-to, sink into the sofa strain may take some trial and error, but that's what makes it fun. Yeah. So enjoy. Yeah. Explore. Learn.
That's what it's all about nowadays with all the different strains out there. Find what works right for you. Have fun doing it. Be safe doing it. And have some fun.
Yeah, because you can buy as little as a bud.
You can buy a gram.
Couple buds.
Most of the time in the dispensaries, grams are 25.
So it gives you a week.
To $25.
If you're smoking once a day, you could smoke a couple hits and then get familiar with it.
See if you like it.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, an everyday smoker, 3-time-a-day smoker, one bud would last them the whole day, or her the whole day.
Right.
Could last them till like 24 hours if they're like they need it. So you can really find out if that worked for you. So buy a couple. When we first started going to the dispensary, we were testing out a lot of stuff. So I would buy like 4 or 5 strains at a time. What I should have did was, though, I always bought eighths because they were better priced overall if you bought an eighth. But sometimes I'd buy like 4 or 5 eighths, and then I wound up giving some of it to Dov Boy and Tyler T and stuff like that because you just like, I can't smoke all this.
Right.
I don't smoke from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. So to me, giving it out to other people, and then they find some strains they like. I think that's what we were doing. Mm-hmm. So I could try more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, swapping some stuff out, but also trying more and more and more. So I found what strains that I liked and what suited my body, my endocannabinoid system, and what worked well with me.
You know what? So a lot of what we talk about here on the show is changing the stigma and what we need to do proactively to change the dynamic of how cannabis has affected negatively the lives of so many minorities and people in the world.
Period.
And just people. And so trying to break the stigma, just trying to help people understand from our perspective what cannabis is and what it does and what it can do for lives. And one thing, when I reflect back on maybe the last, 10 years that we've gotten into cannabis.
You.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me. In the last 10 years, like I would say, like in the very beginning, probably even until maybe the last year, or maybe I'm just realizing this right now. I hated the phrase of saying I'm high, because when you say you're high, to me, it kind of embodies all drugs. And so it has, to me, a very negative connotation, like that you're high, like you're out of it, like you're whacked out, that you need this substance because it gets you high. Like it just sits with me in a very negative light.
No, because for years you've always said you didn't like the word being high. Even when I had said I'm high, you're like, I hate when you say that, and I get it because it was drilled in our heads growing up, that drugs are bad, McKay. Don't do drugs, don't smoke weed. This is your brain on drugs. All that those commercials growing up.
There was some campaign that used the word, like something about getting high too, I think.
Oh yeah. Oh, there was so many.
Yeah, there were so many. So it just has this very derogatory emotion
drilled into our head. And then when our kids went to school, the same thing, the DARE program and all that stuff, don't get high. There was a ton of stuff using that word. So in our head it was like drilled in there,
right?
So I get it.
What I'm getting at though is that I heard a celebrity, like in an interview on TV, like flipping through channels, talking about getting high in this very casual way, and it's like, hey. Then it just dawned on, like immediately I went to my mind and how I feel about that word. Like now I'm seeing somebody on a TV show, like maybe it was Saturday Night Live, and they were like, oh, I'm high or something like that. And I was like, oh, like and I'm not assuming that they're doing anything more than cannabis. Like they said, I'm high. I'm assuming they're stoned. And so I think that that little switch has flipped a little bit, or that we now talk about cannabis, well, in our world. I don't know that everybody else's world speaks as much about cannabis as ours does, but in our world, we speak about cannabis a lot.
A lot.
And I think that I'm coming to terms with the phrase of I'm high, like in relation to cannabis.
Right.
Like, I think maybe that.
It's just that I always perceived as high as the feeling.
Right.
Not high, stupid high. I'm high. Oh, I
don't know. It just sounded like,
to me, I perceive drugs. High. It's the feeling of what you get when you smoke cannabis or take an edible. Just I'm high.
It really is. Yeah.
Right. To me, it's just the feeling of it.
Kind of like if you say I'm buzzed when you're drinking,
right.
Or you say, well, usually you don't say that you're drunk, because at that point someone else tells you you're drunk. You need to behave. Yeah. But when you're buzzed.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I'm really buzzed.
It's just the feeling of just being high.
It's just a feeling.
Well, what's your feeling? Oh, my back pain is gone.
But it's that stigma, like.
That's what we're trying to do.
Things that are becoming more common now.
Right.
And we're getting used to them.
Yep.
So, okay, sorry.
No, it's good stuff. 69% of Americans now support legalizing cannabis.
69%?
Yeah, highest of all time, which leads into only 1 in 10 Americans want to keep cannabis totally illegal. 1 in 10.
1 in 10.
2/3 of the U.S. adults believe the federal government should legalize recreational or medical cannabis, according to the IPSOS poll released this week. An additional 21% say states should be able to decide on legalization without federal interference. Just 11% of the respondents in the survey said cannabis should remain strictly federally illegal across the board. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Support for cannabis legalization has steadily grown in the U.S. in recent decades and has continued to spread in the years since individual states began legalizing it. Earlier this month, a Quinnipiac poll found that 69% of all Americans now favor ending prohibition, an all-time high since the tracking began in 2012. 2 other polls released this month by Pew Research and CBS News show strong majorities in favor of legalization. Beyond their stance on legalization, the survey also asked Americans what they believe the effects of cannabis legalization would be. Half said they strongly, 16% of somewhat agreed that tax revenue from legal cannabis would improve neighborhoods, while only about a quarter, 26%, said there would be more crime near cannabis retailers. That hasn't happened. Look at the states that are now. More than a third, meanwhile, said they strongly or somewhat agreed that legalization benefits the rich more than the poor. 36% disagreed. Many respondents, however, replied that they didn't know the answers to several questions. 30% said they were unsure whether legalization would benefit the rich more than the poor. 24% were unsure about crimes near cannabis stores, and 23% were unsure about cannabis taxes helping neighborhoods. As for how cannabis and legalization might affect health, nearly 49% said they either strongly, 20% or somewhat. 30% agreed that cannabis is less harmful to one's health than alcohol or tobacco, while 29% said they disagreed. Another 22% said they were unsure. Nearly a third of people were concerned cannabis would act as a gateway drug, either strongly or somewhat, agreeing that cannabis would lead to the use of more addictive drugs. But a majority, 52%, disagreed with the idea that cannabis use is an entry point to consuming more dangerous substances.
I wonder what those numbers would have been even 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, from 2012 when they started this, so it's advanced so much. On the question about the support for legalization in general, respondents were asked which policy statement came closest to their own view. Then given 4 choices: federal legalization or medical and recreational cannabis, federal legalization of medical cannabis only, federal deference to state-level legalization status, or keeping cannabis totally federally illegal. First one, the federal government should legalize cannabis for medical and recreation use, got the highest, and that was 45%. The federal government should legalize cannabis for medical use only, 21%. The federal government should defer to the states about legalization of cannabis, 21%. And then the federal government should keep cannabis illegal, 11%. And then skipped was 2%. So, I mean, it's kind of still higher that people want it legalized. And, I thought it was a good poll, but more than ever, more Americans, 69%, want it. But here's the crazy thing to end on this. A new study found that 1 in 4 Americans consumed cannabis during the pandemic last year.
1 in 4.
1 in 4. So,
well, Chicago had what, $1 billion in sales or something crazy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think 2 in 4 in Chicago. Maybe.
Biden's cannabis reform plan still involves Schedule 2 status, which isn't good enough. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki fielded many cannabis-related questions this week, while the nation, including top congressional lawmakers, celebrated the April 20th cannabis holiday on Tuesday. While a staggering majority of Americans now support the descheduling and federal legalization of cannabis, and nearly half of the country's population is living in states with legal cannabis access, the comments made by her revealed that the White House appears obstinate in the wary approach to federal reform. When asked specifically whether Biden would sign a federal legalization bill if it were to reach his desk, she would not answer directly and replied, "I just have outlined what his position is, which isn't the same as what the House and the Senate have proposed, but they have not yet passed a bill." kind of like really avoided
Vague.
that question. Yeah, kind of went like to way left, like
she should be on Dancing with the Stars.
Or she went way right turn or way left turn. She definitely didn't go straight ahead on that answer.
She did not give an answer.
No, not at all. So, but like I said, with the states and everybody really, I mean, with New York coming online, I mean, just so many states legalizing it and the government not stepping in. Sometimes maybe you just got to let it play out and see what happens. But, man, we really need to get this done. So let's see what plays out in the next 6 to 12 months. Cool thing, Virginia, starting on July 1st, the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority has been set to create a commercial market. Virginia governor signed the bill that make cannabis legal to possess in the Commonwealth in July, becoming the first state in the South to legalize cannabis. They decriminalized it back in 2020, but here's the new law. Any person over the age of 21 may possess up to 1 ounce of cannabis for personal possession. The new law also allows a person to cultivate up to 2 mature cannabis plants and 2 immature cannabis plants for personal use at their home. Hell yeah.
Well,
it's still not a lot, but something.
But
it's
completely legal. Yeah. You don't have to have a medical card.
Nope. Nice. You can just grow it. So good for you. It all takes effect July 1st.
Nice.
So read the law of Virginia. Proud of you to do that, but you don't need a medical card to grow.
Do they have medical already?
Very slight. They just passed the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So now it's just.
So are there dispensaries there yet?
Not yet. No, they're not probably going to be ready for the next couple of years. But at least as of July 1st,
it's a start. Yeah.
You can possess an ounce.
Yeah.
And you can grow 2 mature plants, and you can have 2 clones going in seedling favor, and you can always have a 90-day.
I wonder if that's a
sesh going
per adult in the household or a per person.
I didn't read that far down.
Total.
Probably per household. Just like here in Illinois, you can only have 5 plants per household. So, but good for you, Virginia. Everybody in Virginia, the 4th of July, not only just lighting off fireworks, but you're going to be lighting up fat doinks, baby. So go, Virginia. Carry those ounces around. They can't do shit. And if they do, call the weed man. I'll call him out for you. Ohio.
Fly in with your cape.
I will. Dun, dun, dun. Here's something cool. Ohio's medical only. There's only like 52 dispensaries there, but they just passed a bill. The Board of Pharmacy on Monday is licensing 73 new medical dispensaries this summer, totaling 130 across the state. That's pretty good. So I cannot not see them being rec in the near future. It would amaze me if they're not in the next 2 years. Alabama, Birmingham mayor announces pardons to thousands with low-level cannabis convictions. The mayor of Birmingham, which is 212,000 population, announced on Tuesday's intent to have the city officials issue automatic pardons to thousands of residents with low-level cannabis convictions. That's awesome. So good for you, Alabama. Go Roll Tide.
How does that always make its way in the show?
Because you've gone to a game.
I went to one. Yeah.
And that's what you said the whole time you were back home after you went to the game. Roll Tide. So that's what but it's like it is. I mean, everywhere you see it, Roll Tide. So.
That's funny.
Idaho's governor action could stifle cannabis legalization attempts. Here's the thing. They just passed to be able to grow hemp in Idaho, but they're totally against cannabis. Totally against the smokable part of it. Totally fine with hemp. The Idaho legislature shot down an anti-cannabis legalization measure. The state's governor signed legislation, making it harder to get referendums or initiate such as legalizing MJ on the ballots. So, man, that state's not even going to be able to do shit because they're just locking it down. So, so they're saying it's going to clear if it's going to make its way back on the ballot in 2022, probably because they want to control it and do what maybe Illinois did, or if not do it at all. So, I mean, that's just crazy. Michigan, baby. So much for everyone thinking that home growers and caregivers were going to disturb the market and take sales away, because Michigan cannabis sales soar 179% to record $146 million in March.
Wow.
Just in March. That's not even including April with 420. So Michigan cannabis sales increased 179%. I mean, for all you out there that really think that home growers are going to take the market away from you, every time I get updates on sale numbers and data, I'm sharing it just for all you vipers out there and stoners, burners, and potheads and newbies thinking that grow your own, man. Everyone's still going to make money. There are people that are not going to want to grow. But if you learn to grow, you can save some money. Monies. The Michigan agency breaks it down in different way. So sales by product, I thought this was interesting. Flower power, baby, still number one at and this is adult use only because it's adult and rec. So this is just adult use stores. $50 million in flower. Vape cartridges number two at $17 million, and infused edibles at $14 million. I don't need to read the rest. Adult use was pretty big too. $22 million in flower power. Vape cartridges, $13 million, and then infused edibles was $5 million. So Michigan, just banging bucks out, getting your own cannabis, and all you caregivers out there and all you home growers, man, I absolutely love it because you guys are just still showing that you're not taking away from the market at all. So keep on growing your own weed out there, Michigan. Florida Supreme Court kills 2022 cannabis legalization initiative that hundreds of thousands had signed. The Florida Supreme Court has dealt a critical blow to cannabis activists working to legalize cannabis in the state, killing an initiative that hundreds of thousands of voters have already signed and forcing them to start all over again if they want to make the ballot in 2022. It was a 5-2 ruling on Thursday. Make It Legal Florida reform initiative is unconstitutional, arguing the ballot summary is affirmatively misleading because as adult use cannabis would be made lawful in the state without explicitly acknowledging that it would remain illegal under federal law. So that means that Florida has to start over getting these 100,000 signatures and try to get back on the ballot for 2022. Good luck, Florida. Keep on fighting the good fight to getting cannabis legal out in state. Medical, crazy laws down there, though. From what I hear, it's like nuts trying to get licenses. Oh, my God, it's nuts. But good luck, Florida. 22 million people. Do the taxes good with all this tourism. Plus, where they get another 10 million people a year in tourism, too, when the state's like fully open. Oh, my gosh, how much weed they would sell. How anti-pot governor blocked voter approved legalization in South Dakota. Kristi Noem is determined to defy the will of her constituents. The South Dakota Supreme Court will decide whether she can. It was voted in South Dakota totally. I mean, they went for like they weren't even medical or rec. They voted on both and the votes won, passed, and now they're just it's just crazy how the government in that state is stopping everything that the voters voted on. So we'll see what happens and turn on that. Governors are asking Congress to pass the cannabis banking bill, and bank associations are, because cannabis companies are doing everything in cash. It's not safe. You know, carrying all that millions of dollars, you know, you have to get like armed guards to carry, you know, those big trucks.
And they don't pay federal taxes too, so they have to have reserves.
I mean, there is a little bit goes to the federal government, especially this year. The IRS was all over it this year.
How do they pay taxes?
Like $2 billion. They come on. The IRS will always get their money no matter what. I know. So
tricky.
There's a lot of governors asking for this bill to be passed so the banks can get involved. We could start using credit cards. We could start using, you know, you just got to do it because it's going to get dangerous for these dispensaries and cultivators with carrying cash like that. Everything is done through cash. It's just shit. Another good thing is federal lawmakers filed a bill to legalize medical cannabis for veterans. That's nice. A big one right there. Lawmakers in the U.S. House and Senate have proposed bipartisan legislation to federally legalize medical cannabis for combat vets. Thank you. They deserve it, and it should be given to them for free. Yeah. So I truly believe that all veterans should get free cannabis. It helps with PTSD. It helps with concussion syndrome. It's been shown, proven. You did great by passing it. But all veterans in this country that have an ailment should be able to get their cannabis for free. They should be able to get an eighth a week for free on the government, on the taxpayers. Thank you for everything you've done. You deserve medicine that's going to help you and not hurt you. So that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. Black market cannabis.
Yeah. It's there.
Still?
It's still there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't bought from a plug in so long, so I don't even know. So, but tell us about it, Mrs. Wee Man.
Well, just a decade ago, recreational cannabis was only available on the black market. But during the pandemic, it became an essential industry. Think about that.
I know.
Like, that's pretty nuts. So,
that's great.
Yeah. One night last summer, Ted Hicks, owner of Apex Extractions, had somewhere from 50 to 75 cars suddenly pull up in front of his cannabis extraction facility located in an industrial part of Oakland, California. Over 100 people get out and they break into the facility and just raid it and swarm it and keep going and going until it's wiped out, he tells Reason magazine. Had you described this scene to someone a decade ago, they'd probably assume the people ransacking Hicks's business were cops. Instead, he spent the whole night trying to get police to show up to his licensed, state-legal cannabis manufacturing facility. Police were called. No one could get them. 911 was busy, and there was not a police presence for hours, he tells Reason, explaining that law enforcement was busy responding to protests and riots in other parts of the city over the police killing of George Floyd. Speaking of which, some justice for his family this week.
Yep.
Yes. Hicks's experience, unfortunate as it is, highlights the growing normalization of the once prohibited industry, even as it had to cope with the ups and downs of last year. All things considered, though, the pandemic hasn't been a bad time to be a pot merchant. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, issued his first stay-at-home order in March 2020, which required people to stay in their homes unless performing an essential task, like buying food or going to work at places deemed essential by the state. That order shut down huge swaths of the economy, but not the budding cannabis industry, whose collection of growers, processors, distributors, and retailers were all granted coveted essential status by Newsom. Being deemed an essential business by the state was huge in an industry like cannabis, where it's federally illegal, says Christy Palmer, the co-founder of edible manufacturer Kiva Confections. You're always pushed to the side or treated like a not legitimate business. So to be deemed essential was pivotal, historical for our industry. That essential designation allowed the industry to stay open and keep operating even at the height of lockdowns. That was fortunate given the sudden surge in demand for cannabis that came as a result of everyone being holed up in their homes with little to do but get high and watch Netflix. There weren't many other things you could go and do, says Deanne Lapinese, who runs Elevated, a dispensary in San Francisco. While restaurants and bars were collapsing, Lapinese says her business actually had to start extending its hours to cope with the higher demand. That surge in cannabis buying was felt all the way up the supply chain. I have not ever seen such a craze around cannabis. The product was selling before the batches were released from testing, says Michelle Hackett, president of Riverview Farms, which grows and distributes cannabis products from its home base in Salinas, California. And Michelle also wanted to clarify that, of course, they let the processes and all the testing happen. They weren't like rushing and skipping protocol. But they
Salinas. Isn't that place we went to, that restaurant? That when we had
the wharf.
Yes.
And
then
seafood.
we had, what was the
grilled artichoke with balsamic glaze. Oh my gosh. It was delicious. If you're ever in Salinas, California, there's an area called the Wharf. It's just like a couple miles up the shore to the north. And Fisherman's Wharf, maybe?
I think so.
And it's this little, like maybe mile-long strip, and there's a seafood place there. What is that called?
I can't remember the name of it.
It's some guy's name.
Ed's or Big Ed's or something?
I don't know, but it's kind of like it's just nothing fancy. You can sit outside and have the seagulls practically pecking at your head to steal your food, or you sit inside. It's super casual fish market, but amazing. So anyway, it's so good. And then you get to drive past all the artichokes growing and the strawberries.
Pretty good trip.
Pretty neat. Anyway, back to the story. In order to keep up with the increased demand and sales, Hackett says her company's grow operation had to add 2 additional 40,000 square foot indoor grow rooms.
Damn,
Shit.
crazy. And
packed more plants into their existing greenhouses. Production went up 20%, she says. This is just last year. This is California. Like, California is like light years ahead of everybody else in how much they're producing and how stabilized their industry is there. This isn't to say it was all upside down for the cannabis industry. Cannabis businesses weren't immune from the increased costs and challenges imposed by the need to socially distance and sanitize. Palmer says her company had to stop production of their popular churro bar because the manufacturing process required workers to stand too close to each other. Hackett had to change things up by staggering workers' breaks and lunch hours to accommodate social distancing. Lapinay said she had to cut her number of registers from 6 down to 4 to be in compliance with capacity restrictions. She also had to write a full COVID-19 prevention program. It was a lot of learning, she says, saying that the plan she wrote had to be vetted line by Elevate's other owners, their company lawyers, and San Francisco's health department. Customers and employees had to answer health questions and get temperatures checked before entering the stores. The company's HR policies had to be changed to make it easier for employees to stay home, even if they felt so much as a tickle in their throat. There was also no small amount of difficulties that came from being a federally illegal business. Hackett notes that while a pizza business run by her family was able to make use of federal small business relief loans during the pandemic, her cannabis business wasn't so lucky. That only made it harder to retain employees, given their own coronavirus concerns and the generous relief the federal government was providing to the unemployed. As an added indignity, Hackett notes that Monterey County, where her business is located, used cannabis tax dollars to host a relief program that cannabis businesses weren't even eligible for. All of the problems that existed for cannabis businesses before continued, such as a lack of access to banking and cashless transactions and other financial services, their inability to deduct business expenses on their taxes, their inability for the Paycheck Protection Program or Small Business Administration loans, says Morgan Fox of the National Cannabis Industry Association. There were a lot of little things during the pandemic that made life harder for the cannabis businesses too. The end of in-person industry shows made it harder for Hackett's company to connect with retail clients. Palmer said getting packaging material from China was very difficult for a while. Those, of course, were problems faced by a lot of other businesses and industries too. In that way, the pandemic showed how far cannabis had come in making itself a normal industry with normal problems. If only the federal government would see this that way too.
Yeah, so, just like we talked about with the banking on that.
The banking, and then they weren't even eligible for any sort of federal.
None. Thank God they were able to stay open. Yeah. Deemed essential to stay open to sell it. The cannabis industry would have been shut
down. Yeah.
Unless you were a home grower.
Yeah, and that's what we did.
That's what we did.
Thank you, pandemic.
Yep. The number of cannabis shops in London, Ontario, has exploded tenfold, with the cannabis industry exceeding numbers to over $2 billion in 2020, from 1 point something in 2019. They want to open up 1,000 stores total. I mean, it's just nuts. 1,000 by the fall.
Wow.
Yeah. So London, Ontario, the number of stores have gone from just 4 a little over a year ago to 40 retailers as of Tuesday, all either already operating or waiting for licensing approval. So with them wanting to open up 1,000. I guess it's not really about, they want to have one based on every street corner. Mm-hmm. So that's going to hurt for people who are investing now. And then all of a sudden, 5 years from now, there's 1,000 stores. I mean, it's be accessible, but is there going to be enough cannabis for every store also? So that's something to think about. So, well, hopefully, accessible cannabis is great, but having too much of it and not enough, supplies get old. If the stores aren't getting visited enough, inventory will stock up and not sell. You get moldy weed. It's something you got to think about when you're. I understand the growth of it, but
it's
sometimes
more like
too much.
A bakery almost, where you need to turn your product over fast.
Oh yeah, I know they give code dates between 6 months to a year on cannabis and edibles, and if it says it on your flower, like the
I think if it's stored properly.
Yeah, but they usually say
a little dry pack. You keep it cool.
But they usually say a year, and that's about it. And because it says on the back, on the back of when you get it from Cannabis in Illinois, it says the pick date. It says the date it was tested, and then it says the date it's good too. So usually it's about a year. About
how long after it's been picked do you see it in stores?
Usually within like 30 days.
Okay.
So
that's good because it's curing during all that time too, right?
Right. 30 days to get tested. I think it's got to get tested after the cure here in Illinois. So they cure it and then they send it out for testing before packaging. So Canada also did about $100 million in its first year in edibles. First year, $100 million, pretty good. Part of that $2 billion. In Italy, Sicily, the first free cannabis prescription has arrived for a patient at the hospital. That's pretty good. Cannabis and free prescriptions in Sicily. The plant has a strength of says doctors, to calm pain down. They're saying that patients should get it and should get it freely. I think that's fucking awesome. So good for you, Sicily. Keep on expanding that, and hopefully you get free weed to every patient there. So a British billionaire who made his fortune investing in medical cannabis industry has spoken about his cannabis-backed cryptocurrency. Maximilian White has recently partnered with MediConnect UK, a company working in the pharmaceutical industry using blockchain technology. MediConnect UK, founded by former QPR player Dexter Blackstock, can be used by patients, prescribers, and pharmacies and drug manufacturers. The company aims to become the leading blockchain solution approved by medical regulators for the prevention of obtaining multiple prescriptions from online and offline pharmacies. And then along with this, using this cryptocurrency to purchase and to sell medical supplies, customers will be able to use the platform to ensure that such things as counterfeit or recalled drugs are prevented from being distributed. That's pretty neat. So good luck with that. Cryptocurrency. Crazy. Do you believe Bigfoot is real?
I don't really know much about Bigfoot, to be honest with you, but I know there are some people that really think Bigfoot is real.
We know somebody that is.
We know
Bigfoot.
Someone who, he's Bigfoot on the side.
Yeah,
right. It's his alter ego. Otherwise known as the Sasquatch.
Yes.
Is there a way that people say Sasquatch?
The way you just said it.
Do you roar like Sasquatch?
The way you just said it.
Just Sasquatch. Well, Hulu true crime documentary Sasquatch investigates whether Bigfoot murdered 3 Northern California cannabis farmers. So we've talked about the Humboldt Triangle, right? That's very Northern California, remote, redwood forests, like lush, beautiful country, right? But within there is a lot of some of the oldest growers in the United States of cannabis, illegal.
Some of the best growers.
And in there are a lot of myths about what happens to some of those people that have worked in the industry in the Humboldt Triangle. So now there's stories that say that Bigfoot is real. And not only is Bigfoot real, but he murders. He murders cannabis farmers.
What?
Crazy, crazy. So this is the most interesting true crime. It's on the verge of a fiction spiraling from headlines into myths. So really, you've got 2 myths, right? Bigfoot and Humboldt Triangle. So it's emerging. These are my words. I'm getting creative. So maybe your weed makes me feel creative.
I like it even more.
It is the merging of 2 myths, the Humboldt Triangle and the Sasquatch. So directed by Joshua Rofe. The Hulu series follows gonzo journalist David Holthouse as he investigates an anecdote he heard at a cannabis farm in Northern California in the 1990s. The area is best known as the hotbed of cannabis cultivation. It gained a reputation in pop culture as a particularly dangerous region, partially due to the Netflix series Murder Mountain. While the series has been criticized as sensational, its sentiments are echoed by the longtime cannabis farmers that were interviewed in Sasquatch. So again, the Emerald Triangle is the area like up Northern California, and it is a mixture of Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino counties. And then, as you know, the Sasquatch is a 12-foot hairy beast, right? And he is known for just being a mystery. Ooh. So Holthouse, who has worked as an embedded journalist for 25 years covering subjects like neo-Nazi communities, serves as lead detective on the series, gumshoeing his way through Mendocino County, trying to find clues to the supposed murders. Scenes were often shot with only one cameraman and no support crew, and in order to create a sense of security between Holthouse and his sources, many of whose voices and images are obscured. In some cases, he was developing sources over the course of an entire year, says Rofe. His wheelhouse is essentially pockets of society that would make the rest of us really uncomfortable and really afraid. He thrives in those situations. The 3-episode series, premiering April 20th, so this came out last week, is indeed terrifying. For inspiration, Rofe looked not to other true crime docs, but rather tense feature films like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Zodiac, The Parallax View, and Memories of a Murder by Parasite director Bong Joon-ho. Sources repeatedly cautioned Holthouse against investigating further and risking his own safety. Despite the fact that these 3 supposed murders are now 28 years old, sources acknowledge that these deaths are a pattern or a part of a pattern of missing persons that residents of the area would rather see forgotten. I didn't know going into this that it was going to be such a dangerous world that we would enter, Rofe says. It seemed quirkier. Bigfoot killed 3 guys on a weed farm. I knew there was, right? I knew that there was some darkness there, of course, but I wouldn't have guessed how dark it was going to get. Rofe recounted one night when Holthouse planned a meet with a source without a cameraman. The meeting changed twice, first to a public place in the afternoon, then to 11 p.m. at a location that turned out to be closed. Even Holthouse was nervous at that point. Then 8 additional people unexpectedly arrived. One of them called yet another source, then offered to immediately drive Holthouse to meet them 3 hours away in the middle of the woods. Frick no. I wouldn't have gone. That's like a trunk ride. You're never coming back.
You're not coming back.
Forget the Sasquatch. These dudes are going to take you out. Meanwhile, Rofe was back in a hotel room, wide awake, awaiting text updates from Holthouse that he was safe. Holthouse perhaps wisely declined the invitation. Smart man. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a movie geek to the extreme, says Rofe. But suddenly you realize you're not just making that docuseries that you were excited to make. There are things that are so real, and the sources don't give a shit that you're making your little docuseries for Hulu. They don't care about themes you want to explore. Things can get really dicey, and you realize that quickly. Although the overall tone drips with paranoia, there are still a few lighthearted moments, thanks largely to interviews with Sasquatch enthusiasts. Oh, so that's fun. So they tie some of that in.
Nice.
Because that's kind of like a subculture of the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
And these enthusiasts range from true believers to scholars who think of the beast as an allegory. Rofe himself refuses to comment on whether he believes Sasquatch exists, but regardless of his opinion on the myth, the experience of filming the docuseries changed him in at least one significant way. But for whatever reason, this journalist didn't tell us the way.
No way?
No, they just left it like that's it.
No way.
It changed him in one significant way. What? He likes weed? Maybe he likes weed now. So
well,
I guess we'll have to watch it.
I've been seeing the previews for it on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you see Bigfoot walk in through the mist of the trees.
I know one Bigfoot.
I know a Bigfoot.
Is real. Bigfoot's real.
Roar.
He's real.
Does he roar? Roar.
I don't know, but he is
I think
real.
he grunts.
He smokes a lot of doinks. I know that.
We went to Chick-fil-A yesterday to have some chicken nuggets. They were really good. And this little dog that was in a car in the line next to us looked like Chewbacca. We know a Chewbacca too, right? Oh my God, that little dog was so cute.
It was cute.
All right.
An iconic band called Slightly Stupid launches Stupid Organics. Cool name.
Stupid Organics?
Yeah. So iconic San Diego band has gotten into California cannabis industry and made it stupid. Slightly Stupid announced on 4/20, of course, that the launch of the cannabis, spirits, and health and wellness brand Stupid Organics. Cannabis at the core. Inspiration for the new brand comes from Slightly Stupid respects for the benefits of cannabis. In the band's 2.5 decades of existence, the love of cannabis has been no secret. In addition to songs like The Joint, Sensimilia, and Mellow Mood, the band also helped to create the world's first and only record made of cannabis. Good for them. In 2017, Slightly Stupid controlled Substance and Sound Labs, Capsule Labs, and hash purveyor Rodney Lockwood collectively put the band's instrument single Dabbington on a 12-inch record made entirely out of hashish. A unique record pressing was intended to promote cannabis legalization and the ancillary benefits of the plant. So the starting lineup for them is going to be includes potent pre-rolls, full spectrum hemp oil, and 2 signature cannabis seed varieties from the Humboldt Seed Company. So good for Slightly Stupid. So maybe if I get a chance to go out to California again, I get to try their cannabis. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So, hey everybody, I hope you all had a great 420. I know we did. I want to give a shout out and prayers and to all of our friends and people out there that listen to us in Columbus, Ohio. Everything that went on last week. We're praying for you all out there. You're our number 2 city around the world that listens to us. So, we love you all out there. Be safe. Be kind to one another. Do what you can. But thanks for listening, everybody. Mrs. Weeman, you got anything else to say?
I just hope you guys come back and listen again. And, sharing is caring. So share our podcast with your friends. We always say, share it with your parents. Because there's people who don't even know what podcasts are.
True.
But there's an audience out there that might want to hear what we have to say. So share away. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys coming back and listening. And we look forward to more and more episodes.
Hell yeah. I do too. Don't forget to send us a DM on Instagram at WeMan420 Chronicles. WeMan420Pod on Twitter. Our email address is WeMan420Chronicles@gmail.com. And shoot us one, man. Like I said, we'll send you some stickers if you send us something. Thanks again for listening, everybody. As Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.